Hello, I'm Dian Penkov, VP of Technology at Cyient.
And my name is Evogi. I'm Chief Operating Officer. Hello everyone, it's an honor for me to speak here and to have the opportunity to meet you. One of the very first projects our company Cyient did is for VAT reclaim on business travel in European Union. So we had previous experience in this area. This is the reason Cyient got engaged by Avalara. Couple of words about Cyient. Our company is organized in industry-specific verticals. Our software engineers are encouraged to learn the industry they are doing code for. That helps them see the big picture and really understand how the things work in reality. In turn, they work easier and greatly improves the quality of the code they produce. Our verticals are travel and hospitality, transportation and logistics, mostly air freight, fintech, and automotive aerospace. What should we know about the hotel in terms of IT systems? The hotel systems are not as simple as one would think. We will skip one of the most interesting systems here, the Central Reservation System, or CRS, which has some really interesting algorithms for pricing, and if you understand how it works, you'll be able to always book the cheapest possible stay for your vacation. You can see the screen on the screen the most common system which can generate invoices. The main system is called Property Management System, or PMS. It is basically the ERP of the hotel. Of course, there are other places in the hotel like restaurants, lobby bars, spa, etc., when the guest might decide to pay on the spot, and then he or she can get an invoice for the specific service only. There are other systems for that. Catering is when the hotel is organizing outdoors events like weddings. Point of sales are restaurants, and spa activity are also outdoor activities. PMS, or Property Management System. It handles all hotel reservations. It maintains folio of all charges over the entire state. If you are a guest of the hotel, the information about you lands in the PMS at the moment you book that hotel. After one checks in, the system opens an account related to his or her stay, and whatever gets purchased in the hotel gets into that account. At the end of your stay, at checkout, PMS generates an invoice for the stay, room price, and all services. PMS accepts posting from other systems in the hotel. It manages the guest caching and settles the guest bill. POS, or point of sales, these systems are handling restaurants and bar bills. They can post the charges to the PMS and they can get settled there, or they can settle it on the spot.
Okay, now I'll present the project we have completed with the Avalara team using the Avatax API. Where it starts from: every hotel generates invoices, and these invoices needs to be sent for tax compliance. Usually, the invoices are based on room charges. The complexity comes with the fact that each hotel or PMS has different way of outputting invoices. On the other hand, hotel staff is limited, so this flow should be automated. Avalara provides API so the transfer could happen near real time, but as the PMS is providing the data, it's up to it when the invoice will be processed. So the actual application is about transferring and formatting the data from the PMS to the Avalara API on a regular basis. Firstly, we have implemented the communication with the Opera PMS as it's widely used. At first, it sounds simple. We just need to grab some file, transform it, and send it to an API. But let's see in details the actual implementation. As I said, the first integration is with Opera PMS. The PMS has a functionality to generate invoice exports once a day after the night audit. This could be easily configured through the export module of the PMS. The export format we chose was XML. So the next step when the file is generated is that it should be transferred into AVS environment. How we do that? We created a cloud SFTP server instance. This instance is responsible for the file transfer from the PMS as a client into a S3 bucket on the server. But this SFTP is not a public one, and we need to restrict every access, so we need a mechanism to control the users. Here comes the next component, the web portal. It's an ASP.NET MVC application that is used as an admin panel for onboarding new properties and combine the registered property with the SFTP account and exported files. Another feature of the web portal is easy access and visibility of the files that are sent per property and monitoring the success or fail rate of the transactions. All these configurations and the relation between the property files and transactions are stored into the Now database. As I said, when the file is sent to the SFTP, it's stored into the S3 bucket, and that triggers the first Lambda function. The function is responsible to validate the file based on the property configurations and divide the file into separate invoices. Each invoice or bill from the PMS is stored as a separate file, again into an S3 bucket, and a record into SQS is created. The SQS or Simple Queue service is responsible to trigger the next Lambda function in parallel. This function's role is to grab a single invoice, transform it into a Valara API transaction model with a predefined mapping, and send that newly created transaction to a Valara. CloudWatch. Every component on the diagram is responsible to do a structured logging into the CloudWatch. In order to have the whole application to be easily monitored by the service desk and storing informational data for debugging purposes and finding any issue on a later stage. Another feature into the integration is that application should notify a predefined client or property when there is a change on the state taxes. During registering a property, we specify an email how the property could be contacted when a change like that has happened. So there is another Lambda that is triggered every day. It collects the taxes from the Avalara API, compare them with the ones that were previously sent to the client, and if there is a change, an email is generated and sent to the property. If there are no changes, no additional steps are taken. The application also observes the property if any files are flowing. If we find that for a property there are no files for more than 2 days, but we expect a file per day, we treat that as an issue and the service desk should be notified. I have mentioned several times service desk. The whole application is monitored by a team called service desk, and the main tool that they are using is Jira. So the application needs to report every issue to the service desk using Jira. Jira has a good REST API, so we use it. That's why there is another feature into the application that combines the issue and problems into Jira tickets, in order to help the team more easily monitor the application and take proper action with the different types of problems. What kind of problems could happen? For example, there is no files, so maybe there is an issue with the PMS side, or SFTP server is down. Another issue could be that we could not send the transactions to a Valara API. There could be an issue with the endpoint or issue with the process message function. We should quickly find where the issue comes from, fix it as soon as possible if it's into the application itself, or contact the vendor or a Valara if it's outside of the application. The next integration we did is with some online travel agencies or OTA. Currently we support Priceline, Rentro, and Rocketmail. The process is pretty much the same, but the main difference is that here the file is CSV, not XML, and it could contain data for more than 100 properties, so we expect thousands and thousands rows. Also, here we have only the occupancy transaction, not the whole invoice data, so we treat each record as a single transaction with a single item. Localization of the property is based again on a different way, not via location code as it's in Opera, but it's based on address or postal code or latitude, longitude. Again, as it's just another interface into the same application, we are using the same web portal for configuration, same monitoring, and same Jira for the ticketing. How Silent approached the solution and what is the vision we have for the application? First, it should support multiple properties. You could register as much properties as you need from the type of Opera PMS. Next, the application should support multiple data sources as it does it right now. We support XML and CSV files. On the other hand, it should be easy to plug another integration with the different PMS into the existing application. As I showed, the second interface with OTA is simpler and working with the common parts of the main infrastructure. For example, communicating with other PMSs could be done through API with a push or pull, not a file base, and this integration must be easily plugged into the application. Flexible mapping is the way where, through the web portal, you could define, for example, that the tax code coming from the Opera PMS TX20 should be mapped to a tax code SL0902, that is corresponding one into the Avalara system. You saw that we are using Lambda functions and serverless architecture into AVS, as is a proven way to have a scalable and cost-effective application. Now let's see how we communicate with Avatax API. First integration is when a user of the web portal tries to create a property or onboarding a new hotel. There is a screen where the user should populate the account ID and the license key. At that moment, the application is calling the ping API endpoint in order to validate the credentials. After that, we are validating the response, if the user is authenticated or not. If it's not, an error message is displayed. If all good, the user could proceed and the application interacts with the next API call. Query companies, in order to preload the list of the companies and the locations from the Avalara account. Then the user chooses the combination of company and location that needs to be registered and the property is created. Here you could see how an error and success look like when validating the provided credentials. Next communication with the API is the main flow. It comes when we need to submit the transactions to the Avalara. As we discussed, each file is divided into individual invoices, and these invoices are sent to the Avatax API through the method create or adjust transaction. We store the response into the database and mark the transaction as success or error. You could see how this looks like on the portal side. Selected file has a lot of transactions. Most of them are green, that means all good, and transferred, except one that is marked in red. There is an issue with it. It couldn't pass the validation or it's rejected on the API side. As we discussed, an important feature for the application is monitoring of the tax rate changes for each property. Here comes the next API endpoint that's in use. We are using create transaction method with the type sales order, so we could collect the taxes for the particular location. Then we compare them with the ones that were previously sent to the client, and if any changes, we send an email like the one on the left. We also mark how much is the change. Now let's see the demo. The first method I will show is ping. It's simple one. What we need is just an out header. Let's go here. Authorization. We just put the account ID and the license key as a password to validate the credentials. It's a get method. We send it. As we can see, everything is working and we are authenticated. The second one is query companies. we use that to retrieve all companies and locations for that account. You need to specify here in the query string that the locations should be included in order to be returned. Now let's test it. And for that account, we've got a few companies, and every company has one or several locations. Next one is the major one, create or adjust transactions. It is a post method. The body should be of type transaction model. All fields are well described into the Avatax API portal, but I will point out only on the ones that we are using and are critical for the application. The most important one is the transaction identifier or the code. It goes here. And this should be provided if you want to update a particular transaction. Here we specify the company code. Here is the location code. The types should be sales invoice. The commit should be true because in order to be visible into the portal, we specify the currency code, the date of the transaction, and here come the line items per transaction. We specify the number inside the JSON file, the amount, and also the tax amount. Here we've got parameters that are only for example, as we get the data from the PMS, number of nights is relational data. So it's 5 number of nights for a particular example. Okay, let's say that the transaction will be for the 12th for December. Let's put something for demo test as a transaction ID. Do you have any other dates? No? Let's send it. We've got status to 200 OK, so it means everything is sent. Let's go and try to find that transaction. And here it comes. It's visible into the portal. The next one I want to show is again create or adjust transaction. It's for OTA. The main difference here is only that we are not using the location code. Just to find it. Yeah, here for the address, we are using latitude and longitude in order to represent the location. The next one, let's see if we send wrong data. We're getting 400 batch requests and with a really very good description that tells us that there is a problem with the location we sent. And let's see what we sent. It's latitude and longitude, which is wrong number. And the last one is how we collect state taxes. We are using create transactions method. We are specifying the company and the location into the body. Here is the location, here is the company. The type should be for sure sales order. Everything is empty with amount 0. For sure, yes, getting the state taxes, we need to include the details. We send it. And what we get, we say that taxes are into the details node. For example, for the New Jersey, the state taxes are 006, so 6.6%. Okay, what the team found ease and convenient of using Avatax API. The first one is the simple authentication. You could use just the username and password of the account ID and the license key, and you are done. This works for all the methods. Just put them on the header. The most lovable part for the team was the SDK. Yes, there is a REST API. It's well documented, but working directly with an SDK on the language the developer like is really nice. Property localization is another magic that happens behind the API on Avalara end. We could send a transaction and specify the desired property in 4 different ways. You could specify one of these: location code, postal code, address, or latitude, longitude. This really helps us with the integration of OTA, as there we don't have a specific location assigned to a property. We are relying on an address, latitude, or longitude. The other lovable thing for the developer is the error handling. Avalara has a fully fledged error handling with over 300 defined error codes and descriptions. It's really helpful when you are pointed to the right direction. And the final one, mainly used by the QA, is the fact that you could use the web portal in order to validate what was sent to the API and how this looks like into the actual Avalara system and how it's going to look like for the client side.